exciting to see so many of you here, and I would also like to welcome all the performers who are here tonight. Carl and Marilyn asked me to say a few opening words, and I do so very gladly. For some time now, I've been following with keen interest the development of Washington Musica Viva, and like many of you, would like to see the strengthening of this form of studio-based performances. We are experiencing in some fashion a new adventure of Musica Viva, and tonight marks the first of a series of monthly performances this season. My own perspective is that one of Musica Viva's guiding principles is to create an artistic experience that will both entertain and challenge the audience. To that end, much effort is spent designing programs that have very high artistic merit. Beyond that, the organization brings a healthy mix of art forms we are not likely to experience in too many other places. For example, instrumental and vocal music, poetry and prose, visual performances of paintings and photographs. Many of these performances are presented in a refreshingly new and challenging forms. Here we have, fortunate to have in our own backyard, in a friendly and welcoming setting, performances that bring to our attention composers that we may not be aware of and are not likely to discover very easily. It is truly a mind-expanding experience with, I think, enormous payoff. On behalf of Musica Viva, I would like to thank all of you for your continuing support, and indeed we have new chairs, which is part of your support. And I hope that you give us your feedback, opinions, and ideas by whichever means is best for you: email, telephone, word of mouth, and we even have a sign-in book available for your comments at the back. Few of us are performers tonight, but we are all participants. As participants, we make an enormous contribution to these monthly performances, and our continued support will maintain the shape Musica Viva and shape Musica Viva in an even more exciting local art forum. And now please join me to give a big thanks to Carl and Marilyn for their vision and perseverance and for sharing their talent and creativity with us. Thank you.
Welcome to you all. Thanks, Nada. It's great to have you introduce us. Thank you all for being here. We have tonight Claudia Chudikoff playing the violin, Betty Hauck playing the viola, Lori Barnett playing the cello. And, while we don't have John Harbison with us, we do have Betty, who knows him quite well, so she's going to talk about the music.
John Harbison is a Boston composer who has taught and continues to teach at MIT for years. He's been composer in residence with the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra and also composer in residence with Pittsburgh Symphony. And he won the Pulitzer Prize for his cantata, Flight into Egypt, and this past year his opera was produced by the Metropolitan Opera in New York City. And he is a wonderful musician. He's a terrific jazz pianist. He also is an amateur violist. I played viola quartets with him. And this is a piece that he wrote about 12 years ago. The title, November 19th, 1828, refers to the day of Schubert's death. And he composed it 160 years after Schubert died. It's an unusual piece. It's kind of like a dream or a fantasy. It's very eerie and quirky, and that's one of the things that I like about it. There are 4 movements, and what it is it's kind of looking at Schubert, but through like a lens that kind of distorts things a little bit. It's kind of the composer's fantasy about what happened when Schubert died. And the first movement is Schubert crossing into the next world. And you'll hear the unison strings playing what's supposed to be the trumpets, trumpets of death, which are heard 3 times interspersed with this kind of dreamy music in the piano. The second movement is in the Hall of Mirrors. Music sounds in a manner previously unknown to Schubert. Everything is played back immediately upside down. And this is a suite of dances. And then the third movement, he says, emblematic of a storehouse of ideas which are still to be explored, perhaps even in future times, the short fragment which begins this rondo is the only one in this piece composed by Schubert in his first life. And so the rondo that you'll hear at the beginning of the third movement is something that Schubert actually composed himself. There also, you may hear references to Schubert if you know Schubert's music well. There's a part in the second movement, the Suite of Dances, which reminds us of the Death and the Maiden string quartet or the A minor string quartet. So if you're familiar with that, maybe you hear that. And then the last movement, I think, is really quite fascinating because Schubert, the week before he died, he decided he wanted to take counterpoint lessons. And because that he had a specific problem pertaining to the tonal answer of the fugue subject in a fugue, and he wanted some lessons in this. And he went to this man named Sector, who was well aware that he was teaching the most extraordinary student who ever came for a lesson. And he concluded by assigning Schubert a fugue subject on Schubert's own name. So the last movement starts with S, which would be, what's it, E flat, E flat, C, H, which is B, and then a rest for the U, because there's no note for U, and then B, E. And so what John Harbison has done, he has taken this fugue theme. Oh, and I should mention that Schubert died before he was able to write this assignment. He died a week later. So what John Harbison did was to take this fugue theme and write a fugue, somewhat in the style of Schubert. And what the composer says is that this piece asserts Schubert's relevance to our present rather than any nostalgia for the past. And it's 16 minutes long.
And if Barbara doesn't arrive, we're going to play it twice. Is Barbara here?
She'll be here eventually.
Oh, thank you. Let's disappear the mic. Here?
Yes.
Hey, there she is. All right. Always knocks our socks off. Okay.
Hi. Oh my God.
This is a small enough room. Is this all right?
Yes.
Unless, do you need it? Because I'd rather not if I don't need it.
Gotta turn off.
Do you want the?
Oh, here.
You're going to use the mic?
Okay, well, I thought the music was fabulous. It wasn't what I expected, and I'm amazed, really amazed. It was great. This poem is called Peter and the Wolf. I love the oboe, vacant and serene. Always I look for unlikely romance. No whiny violins, no flowery piano, melancholy woodwind in black, you are mine. Same with Peter, we two birds in our ruffled feathers, never giving second glance to the obvious, like when Peter says, sure, a dog is man's best friend, but what kind of man can befriend the wolf? That's a man. A wolf, I say, will drink right out of your heart. He smiles, nods, and lets the wolf in. I turn to the stereo, drop the needle gently onto oboe grooves in vinyl, nothing like the real thing, too hollow and without the breath it needs to be music. Peter helps the wolf undress him, offers him the softest flesh first, says, don't swallow me whole like you did Sasha, divide me up into the many parts of you. The wolf obliges, the needle slides to center. What a man. I have a birthday next week, and I have children, so I think that really speeds up your aging, no matter what. So I sort of feel like, I think I just said to Jody, like I just got the check for my dinner and I don't remember tasting anything, you know? So this poem is called What Shall We Do with the Mother? It's sort of like, there are a few decades before I'll stop caring about birthdays, and I'm looking forward to that. I imagine my future when the seams are loose and I can contain no secret any longer. When my survivors whisper in next rooms using words like arrangements. They move their mouths too widely when speaking to me, and not at all when speaking of me. This new me. This splendid Dorian Gray me, who spends bedded time shifting her weight beneath urges to scream and cry. In her bare hands, she pops the balloons the Girl Scouts bring for the 4th, eats the pudding and throws the rest. She has commandeered my days, blooms full and exposes me. I can only feign resistance. The lovely young nurse will close the door and whisper to my then-grown children to return when I am more myself. Ah, but I am as never before. This is a poem called What It Would Take to Make My Mother Happy. And my mother really hated it when I first wrote it. But, you know, it's the truth. I don't know what else to say about that. She hated it until I got it published in a journal with a guy I did my senior thesis on, and then she thought it was so great. You know, oh, how come you didn't put that one in the book? It was actually just an oversight. But and when I first read it to her, there's a section in here about singing baritone arias with her, and she said, you know, they wouldn't be baritone, they'd be tenor. So shows how well you know me. So what it would take to make my mother happy, and probably yours too. First, I burst through the door wearing earrings, a smart pantsuit of some pastel color, and a haircut like Mary Lou Retton's. I have calzones and cannolis, which I made myself early that morning before 7 a.m. Mass. Ma, I say, kissing her cheek, don't get up, I'll put the coffee on. Then we sit and talk. I tell her about my trips to Rome. She tells me about her trips to Rome. I tell her I've been a virgin all along. That the children are foundlings. She says she's suspected, and that although it's so magnanimous of me, we both hope it won't keep me from joining the convent someday. I admit I left my husband for that very reason, plus his insistence that we consummate our union. I would have none of that. She understands. By the afternoon, we are on the veranda, drinking Chianti and singing baritone arias. After Rigoletto, I tell her I like my life, but it would be nice to find a man with a better job than mine, because I should be home with the children. She tells me she's met someone for me, a restaurateur, tall, from Napoli. He's always there when she lunches, and recently he kisses her on the cheek when she leaves. I agree she should give him my number. We are tipsy, now speaking only in Italian. She shows me a needlepoint she is doing. It's a pillow cover with the Pope's face. I think it's coming along nicely and ask if she'll make one for me. We say a quick prayer that Aunt Josephine's cancer goes into remission, then I help load the dishwasher. Ciao, Mama, I say. I need to go home to cook lasagna for the parish priests. I'm in the rotation to prepare their meals. I walk to my car with a container of her homemade escarole soup, 2 jars of imported olives she has given me, and a recipe for lasagna just the way Father Anthony likes it, and just the way she likes it too. You guys remember when all the manholes were exploding? It's sort of like a silly thing to inspire someone to write a poem, I suppose, but there's a lot of, and it's not like this is like my cause or anything, but it's just sort of a sad state. A lot of fuel lines, underground fuel lines, are not maintained like at all. There's like this total neglect, and no one knows who, if the gas companies or the people who laid the pipe or what. And this is happening actually a lot, mostly in rural areas. This is sort of about something that happened in the Northwest. The poem's called Now We Have None. There are stories I have no right to tell, the kind that belong in the Bible, like when the boys in Bellington scrambled away from the playground with an empty lighter just for fun to see what they could get away with before dinner. 2 friends crouched in the sand by a stream where the water doesn't smell funny to them, and if it did, it wouldn't matter. There was too much excitement in the fistful of plastic. One held a sacrificial twig while the other tried twice, 3 times, to strike. This is the end of all sound but the sweep of flame. First devouring fingertips, the boys lock eyes, this second hangs above the fumes of the stream. Then the rush, and the boys are covered and drop, lost in the sand. As the stream becomes a 1-mile wall of fire, hell's belly torn open from there to there. I will never like this poem, it will never be a poem, it will never seem possible or unpolitical or real. I have my boys at home with me. How can I listen to the mothers, the room full of mothers, asking questions that make no sense? Where are my boys? We had 2 boys. Now we have none. We had water. It turned to flame. Just as easy this ink should turn to flame. Who should answer this, put reason to outrageous grief, or come up out of the flames to deliver 2 boys intact? Probably not God, definitely not me. I can't show you what the world's become. It's more than a flash, but less than ash. This poem is called Courage. It has a very light reference to Paradise Lost, like anybody paid attention and they were supposed to read it. It's all right, you're not graded on this. Submit or yield, some would have it. I think I am a blank sky. I am wrong. What I wanted to say during the storm was, drive off the road, let's see what happens. I wanted to show you how to dance in the pour without shoes or thoughts of work in the morning. What I did was let you drive home to your wife, as Othello did, night after honest night. I have a couple of new poems I'm trying out on you guys, so like it or not. But I suppose the reason I'm mentioning that is I never can tell until I've had enough distance where it's, so I'm happy you welcoming any. You guys, you should all know, if you're here, the story of Pygmalion and Galatea. the sculpture, the Greek king could not fall in love with any mortal woman, and he sculpted this woman for himself and fell madly in love with her, and Aphrodite turned her into a real woman because she was so happy that another man fell under the spell of love. This is sort of the to be continued part of that. Pygmalion talks down to Galatea all the time. It's impossible not to notice. In public, he cringes when she speaks. He gets tipsy at parties and talks about what he did to her while she was stoned. So humiliating. She is undone, he says, the best of her in her silence. Then I could take a hammer to that head if I wanted, but now, oh, the living. He wanders off, and Galatea lingers around the hors d'oeuvres, pretending no one hears her husband. There are flaws in motion that he would never have detected. Prediction of weight gain in odd places. Weeping for no reason. Her assertions that she never really chose him. His arrogance turns to bitterness. Her weakness, his weakness, the turn of his talent. You are a good king, she repeats, whispering into his drunken head as she tightens the coat around her shoulders. Sheepishly thanks the hostess and ushers Pygmalion out the door. At home, he sculpts, keeping a basement, a sea of ivory. The women, eyes closed, rounded and cold, won't change their hair or disturb the important conversation. Here he has his bed, curses Aphrodite, and upstairs Galatea runs her fingers down the beautiful porcelain of the bath. She digs into her flesh, finding the white stone, the cold beauty within that birthed a cursed kiss. I have some copies of the books if anyone is interested. It's called Jigsaw Eyesore, and I like it. It's a fun book. There aren't any page numbers, so you're free to just sort of wander through it as you wish. But the thing that sucks for me is then I can never find anything. So I have a divorce poem called A Truth Like Blood. Well, what the hell? I'll start with this divorce poem. I'm having a bad time with my ex right now. Give me an A. Y'all know Scarlet Letter, right? You did pay attention when you read that one. Give me an A. And you're welcome to, this is class participation, all right? Give me an A. Give me a big red A, put it to my ass so you can see me going. Give me an A. Give me a big red A to go with my big red lips kissing the man I love, ain't you? And we all feel better now, right? The other divorce poem. This is A Truth Like Blood. There is dishonesty in a neat wound, one that bleeds just enough. I have heard of the man bravely staggering into an emergency room with an arrow through the eye, a bullet in the breast. He will live. If it had been 1 inch, 1 millimeter, 1 acre, 1 mile, 1,000 years to the left, he would have died. He would have at least bled and bled. Instead, he has a tiny scar, perfect vision, no slurred speech, and years later, when the new wife undresses him, it will be so insignificant that she will not ask. How am I doing for time? I didn't even ask you how much time I had.
I wasn't watching.
Not like I'm good at that anyway, but just give me one of these. I respect you.
You've got 6 or 7 minutes.
All right.
All right. Do you guys have anything? Any requests? None?
Anything you feel like.
Oh no.
Tune into the audience.
I think we're rolling rather well. I'll read this last. Let me put this here. I have another new one. Let me try that out. Yeah. It's the title is a quote from Nietzsche, or part of a quote anyway. It's called "Beneath the load, one can neither throw off nor endure." David is so sweet how he doesn't recognize me when I pull up, then spreads his face with delight and nods. I give him rides whenever I can. It makes me think of my father scooting us into the back seat and warmly inviting a hitchhiker with all those tattoos. David is not a hitchhiker, but he always accepts a ride. He is retired from the retread plant, but now has a new job not so far at the Antique Mall at Hahn Road and Route 27 North. There is not so much lifting at this job, not as much as at the retread plant on 140, and that's a bad thing. The lifting was wonderful, important. Now, he says, it's just 5 pounds here, 10 pounds there. I understand his limits. David is a powerful man, and I have never underestimated that. He walks in any weather, chronically underdressed in rain or snow. His 3 children were vanished by the state when his wife went to Schubert for the voices. That was 35 years ago. His wife is back, but the children aren't. Sometimes his wife walks with him, usually not. He dreams that he carried his wife out of her nightmares, went back for the children and found them in front of the TV where he left them, the baby in her bassinet. He carries them all, and in the lawn, they watch the house turn red and fall. The dream makes me wish I wasn't divorced, and I take too long remembering I was the one left alone in the red house. I told him my best dream once, and he said he had lived there, and I believed him. It must be difficult, I said, living in dreams, and then seeing the dreamers in the real world. Like for me, when I run into the people from group therapy trying to go grocery shopping like everything is okay. On beautiful days, I pick David up anyway. It is selfish, I think, but I love to have him in my car. When he is gone from me, I feel better, like I used to after confession, before my sins grew heavy. Okay. This poem is called Adrift. And I had surgery in the beginning of the summer, and it's sort of about, I was watching a lot of Hitchcock movies while I was recovering. I don't know why. And my favorite is Lifeboat, and it's such a great movie. If you haven't seen it, I just totally recommend it. It's wonderful. And what's really cool about it is that it's got like such intense psychological content. And then like, it was after that that he did Spellbound, which is supposed to have a lot of psychological content. Did anybody see Spellbound? And it's crap, man. That is just such a waste of Ingrid Bergman, I thought. And just, Lifeboat just was, you know, fabulous and organic, and this one was trying so hard to be a psychological movie that just flopped. It was ridiculous. So anyway, all you need to know is I was on drugs and watching Hitchcock. Adrift. Since I've been out from under a knife, I imagine myself at sea, not altogether different or better. I rise and fall, sometimes tied to the cross which bears me, sometimes in a plastic lawn chair or raft of flotsam and driftwood. I have been at sea for 3 weeks, with no hope or concern of rescue. This is simply another thing which burns my skin. I dream of drinking. In one dream I had 2 drinks, coffee and water, only I had done everything wrong, leaving me with a cup of hot water and one of cold, thick coffee. It suits me. I have gone for months this way, lulled to sleep by the sea, rhyming unrhymable words, creating palindromes, changing my name over and over. The beauty of loss is the absence of worry. I do not ruin these things so easily. I do not waste a clear sky with thoughts of home. And then I'll read one last poem that's called Last Poem. It's the last poem in the book, too. And then I'll read the Barbie poem, which have you heard? Which I think is a classical.
Yeah, that's good.
Last poem. This is actually really appropriate. I have a lot of readings this month, and you guys are lucky if you care to feel that way, that you're the first of the month, because by the 27th, I'm going to be so sick of hearing myself. It'll be crazy. My back aches from words, and I forget how nice it is to hear me not talking. It's the tiny words I love most, the ones that mean everything they should mean, like try and go. I will save those for later. In a dream, I wore a dress of words, French words, mais oui and bon oui, small and good. The words were silver and moved all over me like tiny beetles, exchanging each other until they became no language. This is how I write to you now, imagining this is my last poem, and after this it will only be letters, strong, lean ends,
L's, shy N's, and on my back I'll wear a Y to keep me steady as I write and write the letters the way I must. And I will finish for you with a poem called Dream House. It's about subletting the dream house, which you should know about, right? The 3-story plastic thing about this high. You know, you guys have kids, you know, you're kicking it. You don't know what I'm talking about? The Barbie dream house. With the little elevator, you had to pull the string and the, you know. I never had one, but Chrissy Taylor next door did. It was very cool. So anyway, I'm subletting it while she goes on the little mission. It'll all be relevant. Okay. I saw the ad, I had the cash, I packed up my shit, and I headed to the coast. This was a once-in-a-lifetime, a hail bob, a $20 scratch-off. She's renting out the dream house while she's on the moon mission. She's left instructions on the refrigerator for watering the horse and checking in on Skipper. Tuesday's trash day, and could I please not have friends over? Mystery is what makes the dream house so dreamy. In her bedroom, I find gowns, costumes, bathing suits, billions and billions of shoes, but no underwear in her dresser. Her refrigerator has only grapefruit in it. Her television gets only one channel, an unmoving picture of a poodle. After 6 hours of the dream life, besides playing in the elevator, this is no fun at all. I was sitting on the plastic demi-sofa in a pink chiffon tea-length and cowboy boots reading the new Lisa Frank catalog when the phone rang. The man on the other end identified himself as her plastic surgeon from the Mattel Institute. Did I miss her? He cried very unprofessionally. She's in great danger. Her implants may explode upon decompression when she re-enters from space. She really should have consulted me. How can I get in touch with her? I have no idea, I say, except for use of telescope. Then there's a beep on the other line of the dream phone. Ken. The plastic surgeon is on the other line, I tell him. It's an emergency. It's her tits. How can we reach her? Doesn't he understand the significance of this situation? The fate of all prepubescent female psyches is in our hands. She can come home a heroine or a flat-chested invalid. Ken is not responding. Ken is not breathing. Let me tell you something, but the surgeon is on the other. Just listen, goddammit, my hair doesn't move. Do you know what that's like? I don't have independent working fingers. All I have is her. She's the only thing that makes this living hell worthwhile. She's the reason I do nothing but smile. From her tiny tiptoes all the way up to that hair that changes color when you spray it. I've stood by her through disco and square dancing. I've sat in the passenger seats of Jeeps and Corvettes. I've dated that woman for 50 years, and she's never cared that I'm anatomically incorrect. Well, Ken, this is your chance to move on. I'm trying to be optimistic. You can get on with your life. Be a man. I'm not a man. I'm a boyfriend. I look good in a Velcro tuxedo. I make her friends jealous. It's my job. It's my life. I've handed myself over completely to the one I love, and she will not die the humiliating death of exploded memories out in the cold emptiness of outer space all alone. I'm coming over right now, and I'm going to throw myself off the roof of the dream house. Goodbye. But Ken, she said I couldn't have guests, but he'd already hung up. I clicked back to the weeping surgeon. He seemed not to notice that I hadn't been on the line, so I hung up on him because I had to change my clothes. I selected a jumpsuit, pink, with purple stripes down the side, and light blue tennis shoes, though I still had to walk on tiptoe. By the time Ken got there, he was stinking drunk. He hadn't shaved, and he smelled overwhelmingly of vomit. So I invited him in for a drink. We had scotch. We went to the roof with about 100 outfits, including the entire international costume collection. And then, one by one, we set them on fire and threw them onto the sand below, burning empty effigies of every evening and outing Ken had to accessorize himself against. Then he slapped me on the back and said goodbye, and flung himself down the 3 plastic stories to the Malibu shoreline, clutching the fiery pre-fairy godmother Cinderella dress, the one with the corset. And before he landed with a thud on the beach and sent upward the horrible stench of his burning synthetic body, before I turned away from the tiny horror to go water the horse and eat more grapefruit, I swear I saw his hair move just a little.
Well, what a first half. Thank you all for performers. We're going to have a short intermission, and as usual, this is a great opportunity for us to get to know each other. And if you happen to be walking around the room, there's some wonderful artwork by Marilyn, and if you catch her, I know she's always very willing to talk about her work. And also there's some refreshment at the back. Please help yourself. And we should be back in 20 minutes. I make it about 8:30 now, so if we come back by 8:50,